Do we have a question or a comment or a thought? Shauna?
I just want to say, Cody, you were saying about, obviously if kids aren't passing the test, they're likely to just drop out. And it was just interesting, I just heard yesterday that they've changed the GED recently, so it's all online testing, and the results it's just plummeting. So people can't even pass the GED anymore. So that's just one more thing on top of it, is graduating high school, okay, maybe you drop out, but you had the chance to take the GED, and then at least you'd have that. That's another thing that's recently changed. It's just made it that much harder. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Someone's got an idea. I'm sure, Bianca, you must know what to do.
Spotlight.
Or questions for our people here? Yes, Therese.
I just thought the opening, everything was wonderful, but that opening was just beautiful. Your performance was fantastic. Unbelievable.
Y'all both did the same thing. No, you go
All right. Yeah, could you stand up and talk so everyone can hear you?
If everyone can stand up and ask a question, then I can take you.
Bianca is experiencing teaching, substitute teaching for the second year, right?
Yes.
You can't speak for yourself.
Yes, I am a substitute teacher
Right.
in Providence. And it is delightful. I mean, just a delight every day. But no, I wanted to ask you a question, Teresa, because I write people up all the time. And I'm not going to tell a lie, like I really do, because it gets wild. And I'm just wondering, like, what do you do? Because I mean, like, I know that some of these kids have problems. I mean, some girl was absent for 3 weeks, and I mean, she's failing my class, but her family just got a new home. They were in Crossroads for all of those 3 weeks, I just found out. And she's coming back to class, and she's talking to some girl about her poetic justice braids. And this other girl, and they're just talking the whole time. I'm like, hey, remember you were gone for 3 weeks to go do some work? I'm placed at a school that I've been at for a while. And I know she has issues, and I feel bad, but it's like she's not doing anything. So what do I do if I can't write her up? And you know what I mean? It's just like, what do you do?
Well, you can write her up.
Well, yeah.
There's survival, right? I mean, because she doesn't have the right to take away the opportunity for everyone else in the class to learn.
Right.
And that's the reality of it. There's no short answer to that. I think all right, there is a short answer. Did you get them at the beginning of the year? Were they yours right at the beginning?
No,
Right.
I got them
a substitute
in
teacher.
October.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of it has to do with feeling the freedom to be able to get to know them. I mean, really get to know them. Like where it becomes not just a classroom, but you feel like it's a community of learners with a lot of respect going on and people understanding and kind of even knowing some of each other's business.
Right.
Building trust, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And for me, that takes away 90% of those management issues. If there's trust built and people want to be there, when someone comes in who's changing the dynamic, the others are going to work against that. But if the dynamic isn't really, ours, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not perfect where I am either. It's just I tend not to write people up because I don't have the time to actually fill out the stupid forms. I don't think that it's going to do anything.
Yeah.
I have found, when I did write kids up, it just gets them out of the room for a little while. It never changes the behavior.
Yeah.
Everybody has good days and bad days. And you kind of learn where you can push and where you can't. If this particular kid is having a bad day, I'm not going to engage.
Yeah.
I'm not going to engage. I'm going to support and I'm going to excuse and I'm going to let him go as long as he doesn't trash my class.
Right.
So I think it just has to do with being respectful and understanding people as human beings.
Yeah.
So it's not a science. It's messy. It's messy, but I think that's at the heart
It's
of
real
it.
messy.
That's at the heart of it, is interpersonal relationships, and that takes time to build.
Yeah.
And when everything around you is working against that, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I have students who like want to talk to me about their personal issues, but it's like, this is the do now time.
Yeah,
Can't do that.
because you got to cover this because it's on the test. You know,
Yeah. So,
it ain't right.
If I can speak to that, I am a school social worker, and I have been working with children and families for 20 years in Boston and in Providence. I think utilizing school social workers, school supports as much as possible, because that's a person who could do a visit on a Sunday, call a parent during an evening. I mean, I do whatever I can to reach out to a family at whatever time I need to do it. So try to use those people as much as possible. But I think that when you're in a substitute position, they don't know you, they don't trust you, so they're gonna test you. And like, I'm pretty sure for you, they behave, because you create a safe environment for them. So that's key.
It's hard, but you're right. I mean, but it's also building interpersonal relationships with, those people in your school. All the support people in your school.
Right.
And if that's not there, you need to be able to say, hey, so-and-so, I don't want to use any names because, of course, we're in a small town. You might know my students.
yeah.
So-and-so is breaking down. He needs
That's
to
my
see you.
cousin.
And you call and you say he needs to blow a gasket. Can he come to you for now? But
Yeah.
if you don't know that, you're just going to see bad behavior. You're going to see he's a bad kid, right? Not you. And those labels. I mean, I cringe when I hear colleagues talk about kids. Like, I don't even go to the lunchroom anymore, and I love my colleagues, but I can't hear that stuff. I can't hear that stuff, and that's born out of frustration on the part of the teachers too, because they're doing the best they can. We all are with what we're given, and what we're given right now is a lot of challenges.
How do you, as David had alluded to it earlier, 82%, 83% of the teachers in the Providence School District are white women. How do you reconcile that when you come into the classroom and you have these stereotypical misconceptions about black children? I'm not saying you, but a lot, like she just said, poetic justice grades, and that kind of, even that in itself is kind of like indicative of the attitude of white women coming into the classroom and having to deal with little black boys when they have the stereotypical misconception about who little black boys are. Then and then as parents we feed into it. We'll send our kids to school with their pants hanging off, so we feed the stereotype. But a lot of the problem lies with just that. You come into the classroom and you automatically are afraid. It's not you, but I don't know if you are. I don't even know if you are. But you're afraid. You have this image about dealing with urban children and their parents, and the conditions that they live in, and da. So all of this is playing into your psyche when you come into the classroom and you deal with these little black and brown children. So how does that play out in the classroom? Because I see it all the time. How does that really play out? You can play like you're immune to it all you want, but you're not. If you're white, there's something called white privilege. If you can't help but be affected by what you see in the media, what you hear on TV, what you're being bombarded with. And then, like I said, we send our children to you a lot of times. I see it, they send their children to school with their pants hanging off and so that feeds that stereotype knowledge. So this is what leads to our boys being arrested more readily than a little white boy, or our girls now being arrested and treated like they're less than. And so a lot of that comes from that being white and not having any cultural competence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So How do you, as a white woman coming into the classroom?
Can I give an opinion from a dark-skinned kid?
Just asking. When you said that the poetic justice braids, you know, that just the way that it sounded to me as a black man, it was like, okay, there's that attitude.
Well, I'm a black woman.
But I'm still, but the way you said like the poetic justice braids, where's that? What is that?
But even not being exposed to the inner city culture, not just for black boys, but for anything that you're not familiar to you. You may be operating out of fear.
That's what I'm saying.
He's where his pants are low. What is he packing?
That's what I'm saying.
Out of fear. He may not be packing by candy. Do you know what I'm saying? So I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's not a conscious thing, but out of not being familiar, not knowing, you fear what you don't know. And you may be inclined to judge and make decisions that are not based on the person that's really there.
That's right, exactly.
So I know what you're saying.
So you're thinking like, okay, they don't want to learn. So you don't come into the classroom and put your best effort forward because you already think that these children are coming to school unprepared, they ain't eating, they're coming from a broken family. So you already have all of these notions in your head about the children that are before you. So you're certainly not standing up there and giving your best effort as if you was in Barrington or Bristol and all the children that look like you. It's just not happening in the classroom. Here we go.
Wait, Teresa.
I'm a white teacher, okay? And I teach kids of all color. I teach in Central Falls, okay? When I go in that room and I see a child that doesn't want to learn, I think, what's going on? What's interfering? That's my question. What's interfering? Because nobody wants to not be successful. No child wants to fail.
That's right.
So my question is always, what's going on that's causing this child to behave this way? So I don't think it's fair to assume just because you're a white woman that you go in and you're like,
I didn't assume that.
No, but I think what Osiris is talking
Because
about
my point is very valid.
individual teachers, if you talk to them, you know, there are plenty of people like you who
Right.
absolutely want to
I
get to know the
kept
kids.
saying,
And
not you.
right, no, and I understand that. Right, but I've taught in Providence for 24 years. And I see a lot of what you're talking about, and it pains me.
I do also.
You know, I do see a lot of that. And that is a real situation. It is not every individual teacher. And as the population of Providence has changed and has, you know, continually, it's gotten browner and blacker, right?
Yes.
It has. I've been teaching 24 years. I haven't gotten browner or blacker, but I'm still there, and the population of the teachers has not changed as rapidly as it does not reflect the majority of the students that we teach. I don't know if that in and of itself is a problem, as much as are the hearts and minds of a lot of the teachers there really willing to open up to the needs of the kids in front of them. That's a different issue. Some of them know, and I wish we could do something about that. That's beyond my control.
I was a teacher too before these days, and I taught special ed. So, and I only ever wanted to teach special ed, and I actually worked in a very severe behavioral school. My first big teaching job was in a very severe behavioral school in Massachusetts, and I only had 10 students. Some of them had multiple disabilities. The school was kind of divided into two sections. There was the lower functioning students who were mostly autistic, and multiple different types of neurological and developmental issues. And then there were the high functioning students who had mostly conduct disorders. It was much more behavioral. I want to say that 70% of that population was from New York. A lot of them, most of them, like when they went for home visits, the buses went to Co-op City because most of the kids were from either Co-op City or from the South Bronx. as a teacher in that school, I was there for a year and a half, and I gotta tell you, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because I think as a teacher, if you choose to teach, and for me, like, I chose special ed. I very deliberately chose special ed. When you really choose to teach, sometimes the bureaucratic stuff that you deal with, you close the door, and like when you walk through the door at the beginning of the day, like, it's about the kids. And I don't want to say it doesn't matter what color, because it always matters. It matters in that you need to recognize it, you need to relate to it, you need to find a way to relate to that, and you need to find a way not to judge that. So, for me as a teacher, it was always, it was such an awesome job. Like, I walked in and I had 10 students, and they cheered when I walked through the door. And I had an amazing teaching assistant who was actually Brazilian. But our third staff, because it was a 3 to 10 ratio in my classroom. And my third staff was always a rotating staff. And the first thing, as soon as I walked into the door, I'd be like, I'm a teacher, this is my TA, these are my students. I know what you're taught about their behavioral programs, but the first rule in my class was these guys are children. And they were ages 14 to 21, but they're children, and they're somebody else's children. And you treat them like they're your children. So you treat them with respect, no matter what they're throwing out at you, because it's not personal. If they feel like, I had this girl who used to take me down by my hair at least once every 6 months. But in my head, when it was happening, I'm like, she's doing it because she trusts me. But I guess, being a former teacher, and having a daughter at Nathan Bishop, and, one of my children is homeschooled, I just pulled them out of school for a multitude of reasons. In my head, as a former teacher, and when I left the behavioral school, I went to a public school, and I literally used to close the door and do what I wanted to do. Because if I did what I was instructed to do with my students, they wouldn't have gotten anything out of the school day other than that they're stupid and they suck. And I got a lot of flack for it, but that's what I did. And in my head some days I'm like, I know that, say, in my son's school, the majority of teachers, they're good teachers. So if all the teachers closed the doors and just said, we're not having it. We're going to teach the way we want to teach because we know it works. What would happen? I guess the first thing, would everybody lose their jobs? Can you fire an entire school? And you think Central Falls, of course you can, but if every teacher literally closed the doors and just said, we're not doing that, we're doing what we know inherently works, what would happen? Really, I really am asking that question.
I said, that's the student, you need to set that up. You do that at 5 different schools all at once, and back down. Let's try it.
I guess, it's funny because around Martin Luther King Jr. Day, my kids came home from school, and individually I said, what did you guys learn about Dr. King in school? And, my littlest one was like, well, he told us we need to be nice to each other. And then, this one said something kind of on that same line, and I'm like, well, no. Yes, but no. It was so much bigger than that. And, we all sat down and we watched the whole speech together, and we stopped it, and we talked about different aspects of what he was discussing. We talked about slavery. But then I read this article that was about, they said what Dr. King really accomplished was he taught people to face their fears, to take the beating, to everybody go to jail at once, because they can't hold everybody, and if everybody's sitting in jail singing, at some point they've got to let them go. And that's, to me, I'm like, why can't teachers kind of do the same thing? It's like, take the beating, because they can't fire every teacher in the city of Providence at once. And I'm not saying that, I'm not blaming teachers.
Well, they actually did.
They did.
But it's not. I don't know, that's kind of.
No, I know. I often have that question of, I just want everyone to stand up, and at what point do you put your foot down and say, no more of this crap? No more, and I'm ready, but everyone else just seems to be going along with what we're doing, and it's fine. And, everyone, I don't know what they're afraid of. I don't know. I guess it comes down to money. If you're not in compliance, then they pull the money. And, everything's tight enough as it is, but I don't know. If everyone said, fine, keep your money, what would really happen? I don't know. I don't think it would be that bad. Well, keep your tests, keep everything. I'd like to opt out of the test. I wish that we could.
There's one here, and then here, and then
over there.
so we'll take yours first and add it.
Osiris?
Since you had it, since you're a man, you know I
I'm Tanya, and I'm actually Simone's mom.
Respect the speaker.
And I have a few observations and then a few questions for our young people that are female. I happen to have had the opportunity to kind of live in both worlds. Growing up, I come from a single parent. My mother raised me. My father was incarcerated in and out, and I grew up in Newport. Married someone from Providence, and here we are. My daughter does go to a charter school, but I see the racism that you're talking about. But I also know that racism exists everywhere with everyone, and we all have stereotypes. And as a mom of Native American, African American children, my children, all of them attended Times Square at one point, and all of them have been called Oreos. And if you don't know what that term means, it means
Black and white.
yeah, it's a black child that acts white. And I do have multiple degrees. I just want the best for my children. I happen to have lived in Newport and had a wonderful opportunity to have had, because it's primarily white teachers, but they were very supportive of me. When my mother could not do some of the things at the time that a mother should, as we saw in the performance earlier. So my question is really thinking of the children as people, and I agree that it needs to be a collaboration between the parents, the teachers, the administration, and the students. But I know lately at Times Square, the administration makes all the decisions, and the parents don't hear anything until after the fact. And they don't ask the students any questions about how they feel or how they prefer to learn. And I have a number of people that come to me as a parent, seeing my 3 children, now 21, 19, and 16. Can you please help me? My child is struggling in kindergarten. And so can you tutor my child? And I go back to the very basics. Phonics, because there's this shade of gray, and we teach them to read by pictures. And so the child doesn't really know what the word is because they're looking at a picture. And Simone was not taught cursive because we use computers. So she had to learn how to write cursive on her own because she's strong-willed and wouldn't let her mother teach her. So, really as young adults and current students, how do you feel about the way you're being taught and the way administration and teachers make decisions for you and your home life and all that?
So, I think that comes down to the triangle, which is student, teacher / administrator and parent. A lot of the teachers are primarily white because, stereotype-wise, whites are more nurturing, while minorities are generally seen as being more aggressive. So they take that mindset with them, and so more white people are thinking, oh, I can be a teacher because I'm more nurturing and I can kind of help children, and I think that's how a lot of it is seen. But a lot of minorities do not have the triangle where the administration and the higher ups they see just a black kid and they immediately kind of downcast their abilities, and when that happens the student starts to lose faith in themselves and the parent starts to lose faith in the student, so the triangle is broken, and that's the only way to have a successful school life. Without your parent support, you're not going to try because there's no reason for you to do it because there's no personal connection. And without your administration, you don't see a reason to learn from them, to learn from your teachers because they don't understand you, know what you're going through, and some of the times they just don't care. But also to kind of bring it back to the school to prison pipeline thing, the kneecap, there is currently 2 bills in the state that's going through legislation. One bill is to postpone the high stakes testing graduation requirement for 5 years, so we can put money into it. The less favorite bill, and the other bill is to get rid of high stakes testing. It's very much advised that you write a letter or call your representative to try to get that bill passed, so we can reduce the harmful effects of high stakes testing, and we can get to actually caring about what the students need in their education instead of telling them to make sure to bubble in the circle completely and darkly with a number 2 beats.
I've always had a problem with I'm sorry, I was going on to what you were saying. I always had a problem with growing up and being a man, because all I ever got taught was forget about white, was just women. And I had no problem with it. It's just how, I always thought to myself, now that I'm older, especially that I grew up with a single mom, is that how can a single mom teach a young boy to be a man when she has her own man problems herself? So it's how can you teach a young man to be a man when you're not a man? And there is no men in teaching. Yeah, you'll have a gym teacher, you'll sometimes have a math teacher that's a male, but there are probably 2-3% males within teaching. And then, it's, I also think that helps out, I've always felt that I was just never proficient at math until I got, I was great at math until algebra. Then I kept on getting socially promoted from algebra to algebra 2. Then when I stayed back, I got dropped to algebra 1. And then I skipped algebra, then geometry, then to trig. Now you can see why I'm an artist right now. And you can see why I didn't pass my SATs on the math part. And I just feel when there's a lack of something, especially a father being there, there's always going to be that lack of experience, especially for the young male, because it's my experience, that he's not going to know how to be a man. He's going to learn the wrong ways of being a man, not treating women the way they should be treated, and you always get experience from, the women and stuff like that. But at the same time, I had so much problems with my mom. I was not listening to no woman when growing up. And it wasn't anything against women, it was just, I had a worse woman figure in my life, so any woman talking to me with an authoritative voice shuts off. And not only that, is that how are you going to treat this kid like this, where it's you don't even know what they're going through. You already placed them as the bad kid. And then when you tell a kid you're a bad kid all the time, what is he going to do? He's going to act like a bad kid. If I tell you right now, any kid, do not touch the piece of candy. They're going to touch the piece of candy, and it's just how we are. And I just feel there needs to be some type of change within the schools. And yes, everybody's right with the triangle with the parents and the students and the administrators, but I really feel some of the administrators really need to learn how to be, or remember that they were teachers at one point, because half of them are teachers and were teachers, and then they lost that idea. And then they said, oh, I'm in charge of all the teachers. So when you give someone that much power, they go crazy.
I would just like to say one thing. I just like to, I think teachers, I would just like to appreciate teachers, because I think also that teachers, I have a lot of teachers and educators in my family. I'm not one, so I can thank them right now, because I see teachers busting their butts for these kids. And I don't care what color you are, what sex you are. I see teachers out there that I see work until they don't get home. They don't stop working until 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 5 nights a week, and on Sundays they're back at it again. So, for me, I read newspapers and it's our teachers' faults and this and that, and I just like to say that's a hard job. And I take my hats off to people that do that, and I think that you know, the majority of people that go into education because they love kids and because they believe in equality and they believe that we can all live together in a world, and they want to see us all living in our communities, especially public school teachers. You know, none of my friends that are teachers want to work in Barrington. That's the last thing they've ever wanted to do is work in Barrington. Half of them don't even want to teach at Classical, which is supposed to be the best high school in Providence. They like where they are. They like being in the muck of it and with that group of people. So I just like to take an opportunity to appreciate them, because I think that they are some of the hardest working people and some of the most unappreciated people and underpaid people in our community.
Sure. Go, girl.
I just would like to ask at this point, because it can be, you know, just what the divide here among us, but you know who's not here? The people who own those corporate industrial complexes that are doing all that unfair prisoning of people that has reached proportions we can't even think about. The people that are making those tests for corporations that are testing and top-downing and ruining a life of someone like Teresa, who wants to teach her kids. So we're talking about this day-to-day thing, and there's good people. But the bigger thing of this prison thing and police in the school and a system that is going very violent toward and unfair and unjust and making loads of profits, it's up there, people. I mean, I think that on this lower end, you've got good people that love their kids and let Teresa teach, but it's up here and No Child Left Behind, and there's a lot of money, folks, up there. And they're not here, and they don't care, and they're not going to be here. They're making their money, and those jails are getting bigger and bigger in the prison population. So I just would like to think about that, because there shouldn't be release in our schools. No. I mean, if Teresa could hold her classroom and talk to her kids, and they could talk to her, and they could solve their problems, we wouldn't be having those police. But it's a mindset that has run amok with from up there. So let's us, you know, figure out something together, because we gotta figure out that big piece up there and break it up.
Sir, that gentleman is, and that gentleman is.
So I'm white.
Yes!
I'm not a woman, but I did grow up going to some very good schools, and at a very early age I was diagnosed by my parents with extreme dyslexia and got tested a lot as a very young kid and was told that my eyes were seeing the wrong colors and I couldn't read this and I couldn't do that, and I needed lots of extra help in summer school since first grade and everything else. And I was told by a lot of people that I was a failure and I wasn't ever going to succeed in anything. And even in really good schools, it turned into extreme bullying and hazing that then gave extreme depression that then affected me through my entire life, that I still struggle with today as a 36-year-old. And I was asked to leave one of the best high schools in Boston because I had a C+ average, and I wasn't going to get into Harvard, so they kicked me out. And I was asked to leave RISD as a sophomore because they said I was a failure and I'd never succeed in anything design related. So I am a big advocate of, you know, follow your own vision and mission, and, you know, failing is not a bad thing. When you think of it in a positive way, that failing is actually one of the strongest things that you can do as an individual. And by allowing your students or by allowing your peers and your friends to fail, they actually can learn a lot more. And being very dyslexic as a young kid, I learned the best when I was allowed to fail. And when teachers or parents or other people didn't allow me to fail, they would kind of rewrite my college applications without me knowing, or kind of rewrite one of my papers or things like that. I didn't really learn, you know, the failing process. You know, an example, I got myself through Spanish because I couldn't read Spanish, and I tried every other language out there, but I taught myself how to pass tests by making words, colors, and parts of grammar different shapes, and I knew I could put an orange circle next to a yellow triangle, and if I created a visual puzzle on the page, on a visual language, because that's how my mind worked, then I could pass the test. And I used that mindset for me to solve those problems and to work through depression and to work through motivating myself and to then kind of give back to my community and to things that I'm passionate about. So with that being said, I'd like to ask the students up here, you have your own challenges in school and you're all fighting or creating ways for yourselves to express yourselves to the faculty or to the school systems. But if you had your own opportunity to do what you felt would be the most empowering to yourselves, what would you do and how would you measure that? How would you, is it by passing a test? Is it getting into college? Is it having a career? Is it inspiring the people around yourselves? What would some of those goals be, and how could you use that to inspire the people around you?
My senior year of high school, I got the privilege to, because I was very nervous. I failed everything except for theater, and I had to talk in front of 5 people that were basically at a panel. And I had to, from grade 9 all the way to grade 12, I had to orally tell them what was my accomplishments, what did I succeed in, what was the biggest thing I failed in, but how did I overcome it, and what was, my greatest gift of all to the school. And the fact that they sat down and prepared and this was all not from administration, these were all from arts-based teachers in Hope High School. And this was before they got rid of pretty much every program in the arts community in Hope High School. And with that type of performance-based final grade, at least I want to say 95% of my class graduated. And everybody that I asked at the graduation, how did you feel about it? How did you feel about it? And they said if we took tests to graduate, we would have all failed. Because no one in the arts community was that great at taking tests. I can't remember the last time I even sat down in class to take a test, because I would walk out and tell the teacher, go F yourself, and I'm like, no, I'm taking this test. Because I was so afraid to take it, I was so afraid to let everybody know how dumb I was, and I can't answer a simple multiple question test. And it's just because my brain can't work like that. But I can sit here and talk to you all day long. That will be my performance in my final grade.
I still hold the lowest SAT score in my high school.
What was your score?
625 combined.
500 beat you.
I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for coming. Everyone's welcome to talk on as we wrap up, but try to keep these time limited just to.
Let me make one final note.
Yeah, you make that.
Superintendent Lucy has spoken out against the kneecap. She's getting slammed by whatever that horrible commissioner's name is, and the other one too. And so, any chance any of us have to support her, because as Dorothy was saying, all of those powers are going to be are really going to be working to discredit her and get her out of the way, because she will say stop the kneecaps, and she will say we have to have a change in climate and philosophy in our schools.
And one other thing is, she mentioned earlier how the policymakers and the people who are causing all this to happen are not in these conversations. So I believe a large part of us should be trying to force Congress members into groups like these where they have to sit down and listen to our personal stories, and force policymakers and test designers into these groups where they can sit down and see what is actually happening, because from their bird's eye view they don't actually know what's happening. They probably don't know what they're doing, or if they do, they don't care because they're too high up and nobody's tried to talk to them on a personal level. It's just all dollar signs.
I just want to let you know that we were all invited.
Oh yeah,
He invited them all. We got phone calls to find it. All right, let's give Adrian the last word then.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that going back to the labeling with her story and you and Bianca and everybody, it doesn't matter like if you the whole story. It was his story. It was between labeling. Everybody called him a bad guy. He really wasn't a bad guy, but they called him a bad guy, so he finally became a bad guy. So the point is that really no matter what labels they give you, just forget about it. So like don't be that mean. If I call him dumb, he'll turn dumb. Like he'll just give up hope and he'll stop trying. So like if I tell somebody you're gay when they're really not, they would like believe it and like the point really is not let labels judge you. Be who you want to be. Do what you want, and forget everybody else.